and thank you all so much for coming. I am beyond thrilled to welcome our special guest and dear friend of mine today, the incredibly talented Swampy Marsh. Swampy is yep, that's you. Swampy is a showrunner, musician, actor, and voice director. He's produced hits like, Phineas and Ferb, Milo Murphy's Law, and Pete the Cat, with many more exciting projects on the horizon. Swampy was born in Santa Monica, and his childhood was filled with music and creativity. Despite an early career in the tech industry, of all things, his true calling, I think we could agree upon, was animation. Swampy broke into the industry on a really small show. You've probably never heard of it, The Simpsons. And this is where he met his creative partner, Dan Povenmire. Together, they worked on Rocko's Modern Life, developing their unique style of storytelling. Because of their persistence and their collective creative genius, Disney greenlit their first animated series together, Phineas and Ferb, which became, as we all know, an instant classic, earning numerous awards and Emmy nominations. I am so excited to have you all as we dive into Swampy's incredible journey from music prodigy to animation legend. We get the rare opportunity to explore the creative genius behind some of the most beloved animated shows of our time. Swampy Marsh, it is so exciting to have you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Glad to be here. I listened to that and I think what it says to me is I'm just really good at pretending to be things.
Hey, if that's what it is, we all need to get better at that.
To make it seems to work.
Welcome to the Casting Canvas, presented by the Paiva Chronicles.
There's nothing like it. Animation is for everyone.
Finding the right talent for a role is like the highlight of my day.
Casting and directing it's an art form.
Where would we be without animation?
We talk with top animation voice talent, casting directors, producers, and others on this side of the industry. Here to answer your burning questions and give you a peek into the casting process, your host, Kristen Paiva.
It's so exciting to have you. Thank you. I know your schedule is insane, and the fact that you've done not one but two of these with me is outrageously generous of you. Thank you. Can we start by talking to you? Would you share a little bit about your journey into becoming a showrunner? Maybe some key experiences and any challenges that you faced along the way?
Yeah, well, I didn't get into animation until I was 28. And as you said, I ended up in the tech industry after trying literally everything else, from detailing cars and janitorial, bartending, nightclub. I was servicing ATM machines back when ATM machines were first introduced. And that's where somebody asked me if I wanted to go to work in the computer business. And I worked with Bill Gates over at Microsoft and a few other crazy, wacky people. And then I ended up in an accessories company where I was vice president of sales and marketing. And I just snapped one day and realized if I didn't stop doing this, I'd be in my 60s and still doing it and still feeling like I didn't care about it.
Yeah.
So on a fateful day it must have been 89. I just quit my job.
Oh my gosh.
And I've drawn all my life. So a short time after that, a friend of mine said, you should get into animation. I've seen your drawings. And he helped me get a portfolio together. And then another friend's friend found out there was an opening at The Simpsons for people that had good perspective skills, which was really all I had. I studied architecture and architectural drafting and rendering through high school with a teacher who just beat perspective into us. So I aced the audition, as it were, and got my first job doing backgrounds on The Simpsons back in second season. But I tell that long roundabout story to answer the question about journey as to being a showrunner. I felt that I was lucky that I didn't get into animation until I was 28, because all of my other experience was leading into management roles and supervisory roles, and I was vice president of sales and marketing. So the business side of it, I really understood. And as my journey progressed in the animation industry, I realized just how valuable that was and what a rare commodity it was. It made, I think executives more comfortable talking to me generally, like I understood what their world was like, but also I think it made it easier for people to trust me with large sums of money. Because that's basically what you're doing when you sell a show.
Right.
You're sitting there and saying, hey, I have this idea. Can you give me like $20 million?
That's me.
You have to be the guy sitting across the desk that somebody goes, yeah, I think we could trust him with the money. The business side really helped, but it also meant I had experience with all of that, HR, people management skills, negotiation, contracts, all that stuff that I hated.
Sure.
But as long as I was using it for good, i.e. animation, I didn't mind using those skills. But I found, I think if I hadn't done other things before I got into animation, my journey would have been harder and I wouldn't have had the skills that I needed when I finally got the showrunner job.
Yeah.
Because not everybody is qualified to do it. And most people don't really know what's involved.
Right. And there's a lot.
A lot of it is not the fun drawing funny pictures and making funny voices and writing silly songs part. So be prepared. You have to hire and fire people and have conversations with people that are really uncomfortable and tell executives no and all that stuff, which can be terrible.
And learn how to tell executives no, right? Right, Swampy?
You have to learn the right way to say no to an executive, which is a skill
right
to itself. So that, it was all of those years of producing stuff and working pretty close to the top. When Disney came along and said, we want to make Phineas and Ferb, I didn't have any worries about stepping in and being a showrunner. By that time, I'd watched enough people do it that I understood how to transfer my existing skills to that job.
That's amazing.
Easy.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because there's so much that goes into that. I know. I mean, I only know the tip of the iceberg, but I do know. I mean, there's so much more involved in that than just the fun creative side that I think most of us think like, oh, cool, it'd be so fun to create a show. No, there's a lot. I mean, yes, I'm sure it's fun.
I've said to people, my definition of what I do most of the time is try to create a safe sandbox for all of the animators and designers and voice actors and songwriters and everybody to play in. They shouldn't have to be out there defending their choices.
Right.
The showrunner's job really is to do that for them and to back your people.
Yeah. Or
to explain why they can't do some of the things they want to do in a diplomatic way, or find solutions when they can't do the thing that they want to do.
Yeah, right.
And pushing back where need be and knowing how to push back. But if I'm doing my job correctly, the people underneath me should feel like they all contribute. Their ideas are all valid, and nobody's going to throw them under the bus if an executive doesn't like some of their work.
Right. Yeah, I think, one of the things that I admire about your leadership style is that, you put great people in place and then you trust them to do their job. And I think isn't that key for all of us?
Hire good people to do the job and then have the good sense to get the fuck out of their way and let them do it.
Exactly.
For the language, but that's really the truth. It is.
It's so true. And honestly, regrettably, I think that is not the rule. It should be, but you are an exception. Swamps, could you walk us through the process of conceptualizing a character from the initial script stage through to the final animated version on screen? And are there key steps and collaborations that are involved in that?
Oh, everything we do is pretty collaborative. And there's all different forms. I was thinking about it because a couple of days ago, we were sitting in a meeting and we were doing a read through of a script, first pass of a script. And was what usually happens with Dan and I. We're sitting in the room doodling because I'm one of those people who can't pay attention if he's not doodling. So I just, while I was listening, started drawing all the designs for some of these characters for a weird episode and costume stuff. And then by the end of it, I had like 6 cards and I just handed them to the designers. And it comes all different ways. Sometimes we'll do a sketch. We know what it is we're looking for. Sometimes we don't until the board artist draws it and we see what's required of that character or where extra humor can be extracted from it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have an idea and other times we just leave it to the designers and say, go crazy, show us what you got.
Yeah.
But it can be, somebody reading the script in our read through doing a funny voice.
Yeah.
And you hear that voice and you're like, oh, that works for that.
Yeah.
We've had some incredibly funny reads from temp tracks, like Anne, who's our editor on Phineas, who, when she reads things in, insists on doing it completely flat.
Yeah,
She says, I'm not an actress. So it's usually like, hi, this is very exciting. I love you.
Yeah.
Which normally wouldn't be helpful, but sometimes it's hysterically funny. And we've actually directed our voice actors to kind of mimic that.
That's a good idea, yeah.
And then other times we wait until we get the person in the room. The voice actors that we work with tend to be pretty versatile. And we're like, I don't know what you got.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's hear it. Because I, with all things, and you've heard me say this before, what I think I want is not always what I end up liking.
Right.
And I may have a very definite idea of what that character should sound like or look like. And then I get surprised by something that's better. And it's great. It's like, oh, okay, let's do that.
I love when that happens. I think that's that sort of magic sauce that's everyone's looking for. But so if we're talking about character depth and development and storytelling, I would say that most of the talent that have joined, or folks that have joined us today, are voice actors. So how can voice talent contribute to the process to enhance the overall narrative?
For me, it's the surprises that you get. I often feel, especially with some of our voice talent, that they've put more thought into the characters than we have time to do.
Right.
Because we're looking at 20 characters in an episode, whatever it is. We've got other things to focus on. And the really good voice actors that we've worked with will come in. They've probably created some backstory for this character, and they have a whole 3D view.
Right. Right.
Because they're just focusing on that one guy. And that's joyous. It's the same with, some of the best stuff that we've done in Phineas is stuff that Dan and I didn't think of. It's just finding other people that have a good idea and then just seeing if it works or making it work. And voice acting, that's a lot of it.
Right. No, it
what
definitely
you're bringing
is.
to the table is going to change what we do and how we treat that character. And sometimes completely. We've redesigned characters based on a voice performance just because it's so good. And I'm always looking to be surprised.
I love that. Can you elaborate on your approach to working with casting to find the right actors for roles? How do you approach that? I mean, I know.
Yeah, you could answer. Kristen, how does Swampy approach casting?
The best possible way. I'm not going to answer that for you, but
a lot of times we go in with ideas of who we want. We, the stable of folks we have, so we can rely on people like, your D. Bradley Bakers and Fred Tatascore, and we're working with David Arrigo Jr., who's got 5 million voices in him as well. I mean, all of these kind of folks are the ones that I lean heavily on. If you have a couple of those guys in the room, they can each do 3 voices and they're all completely different and they're all weird and wacky and fun and strange and surprising.
Right.
You can also throw anything you want at them. Like, that's great. Now I want it to be a Russian grandmother.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So people like D. Bradley won't miss it to go, okay, Russian grandmother. Hello, it's me. And they don't think that they'll just give it to you.
Right.
And that's the kind of folks we lean on. The other side is, and stunt casting is such a reality in the business now because there's very few marketing dollars out there to push your show. So you need to take into consideration who you're going to get the PR people excited, the magazines, who it is. And we've done a lot of musicians and people like that we worked with are big stars. So sometimes we come in with the ideas of who we think we'd like. But the same thing goes with casting that I think goes with all the other stuff. We may have ideas, but we also throw those out to the casting people and say, here's the folks we thought of.
Yeah.
Give us some other names if you've got them, or, who do you want to work with? Who are some of the people that you've spotted that you'd like to give a shot to? Because we found some of our best people because you guys in casting went, you know who I saw at a comedy club this weekend?
Right.
I mean, Brock is one of those people.
Yeah.
You guys recommended him, and he's one of those folks. He's, in fact, is a shining example. If he comes in, when he first came in to do like background voices for us, like Walla and Filler, we would make room to animate the ad libs that he gave us in the crowd.
I remember that
They
was
were
some of the funniest.
good.
Yeah, some of the funniest ad libs.
Supposed to be mumbling, and he'd worked on stuff, and it was so funny that we're like, okay, we got to make sure that we clear enough background space so you can hear that guy's line.
Right. Yeah. To be honest with you, I probably, I'm not just saying this because you're here. But working on your shows was some of the most, the most fun. I think the way that you all approach humor is it's just so on point. And that added to the background, everything that we were doing in the background. It was just such a fun, incredible process. So have you come across any challenges or successes in the casting process? I mean, tons, but any that stick out?
Well, we've had some really fun folks. I like the folks that are surprised. The one I remember, and I've got a couple of really interesting folks, but the one I remember was Jennifer Grey.
Yeah.
Because we based Candace on her character from Ferris Bueller.
Right.
So at some point we had to get her in, and I was neighbors with her dad from Cabaret, Joel Grey. And our kids, Jennifer's daughter and my son, were friends for a while. Actually, when they were like 6, I think they were briefly engaged. They broke it off. They were too young. But I remember she hadn't done voiceover work per se. And she came in, and at the end of the first session, we were done. She played, I think the first thing she did for us was Dr. Havarlik, Doofenshmirtz's evil science professor who comes to visit. And at the end of it, she was like, wait, that's it? Oh my God, this is so much fun. It's kind of like, why didn't anybody tell me?
Yeah. It's the best kept secret, right?
I love that kind of thing where you get people in, or when we had Ben Stiller in to do one of our evil characters, a character called Kakapupu. How we got that past S&P, I don't know, but we did. But we were sitting in the room, and one of our casting people, it was Sarah, said, because his wife, well, ex-wife now came, Christine, and was sitting at the back, and she said, we have a couple of lines for Kakapupu's wife. Maybe we could ask Christine. I said, oh, I'm sure, because they're fans of the show, I'm sure she'd love it.
Yeah.
She goes, okay, well, let's wait for the right time. And I went, okay. And I turned it in. Hey, Christine, would you like to do the wife of Kakapupu? She's a real shrew. I think you'd be perfect. And she went, I'd love to. I could see Sarah going, that was not the subtle approach I was looking for. But she had a blast. She came in on the fly and just flew through it.
I love it.
And we also got to work with one of my favorites still to this day is Amanda Plummer, who insisted on doing the physical action while she was doing the voice. I remember we had to bring her in for ADR because we rewrote some of the lines. She was watching it and she did the hand. She goes, wait, I got to do it again. And I didn't get the hand gesture right. And it's like, it's okay. We're not recording it. It's already animated. And she looked at me and she went, no, I didn't get the hand motion right. We're like, okay, we'll do it again.
Okay. Which, also speaks to like your flexibility as a voice director, Swamps, because you have to, you've got to allow each talent, right, their creative like process and
Everybody
license.
has a different way. What's his name? Peter Stormare.
Oh, Peter, one of my
Just an
favorites.
absolute loon. He came in one day with a bowling ball bag, and inside of it was a giant comedy-size atomizer of perfume. And he came in and goes, it's my new scent. I have no idea what it was about, but he comes in and then just does really wacky, wonderful stuff for you. Those have been fun surprises, finding out which people don't work well in voiceover, sports people. And, but I also, the joy of working with a lot of the musicians we've got to work with. Like I did Elvis Costello and Diana Krall on Pete the Cat.
Yes.
And realized that's the first time they'd worked together or sang together. And watching them kind of discover that they could do animation voices was really amazing.
That's awesome.
And how we got them comfortable.
Yeah.
That was really fun. And I've always said, if I'm doing stunt casting, musicians are easy.
Sure. Yeah.
Even if
Timing.
they haven't got the acting chops, they understand rhythm, tempo, and pitch. And they can
Exactly.
probably mimic anything you want. So worst comes to worst, you can give them a read and they'll probably nail it.
Yeah, we find that a lot of musicians, theater folks. It does seem to be a somewhat easy transition in there. There's definitely been challenges, right, Swamps? I know we had one. I won't name anyone, but if we are talking about sort of stunt casting, we had someone on a show that came in and quite frankly was just a dick. And I always say, like, don't be a dick. Just don't be a dick. We don't care who you are. There's no egos here, but just be cool.
I work with a lot of people that I meet just because I want to spend time with them.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, Brock's one of these people who's a really nice guy. Or I met Cristo Fernandez from Ted Lasso.
So he's so sweet.
Friend. He is the nicest, sweetest guy. And I'm like, I have so got to work with you just because you're lovely. Being around you is nice. And also you're willing to take risks and do fun stuff and get out of your comfort zone. He was great.
He is so fun. You had brought him to, well, he was in Honesty, I remember. And then I got a chance to meet him there. He was wonderful. Yeah.
Smells fantastic.
Also smells fantastic. It certainly doesn't hurt. If you smell like shit, that's certainly not, it's not as great.
I do have, my wife was on a film project where she was organizing the ADR at the end of it. And one of the actors who had to come in from ADR drove straight there on his motorcycle from a week-long retreat at a monastery. This was in London, and apparently didn't have time to shower.
Oh, no.
And he'd been there for about 4 hours, and Bear said it was so bad. and this is a fairly well-known Academy Award-winning actor.
So, let it be a lesson to you. Yes, I think I saw Alex posted in the chat. Don't be a dick and don't smell like shit. I mean, just lessons to live by. That is amazing. Well, Swampy, I know you probably can't, but are there any upcoming projects or future plans that you can share with us?
I can talk about Hey AJ. We held a Disney Junior show to Disney Junior, obviously.
Yeah.
Where was that sentence going?
That was it.
It was based on a series of books written by a former NFL football player with all of his Super Bowl rings and stuff. Martellus Bennett used to play for Patriots and a bunch of those things. He wrote these books for his daughter because he couldn't find imagination adventure stories that featured a little black girl. So he wrote and illustrated them.
I love it.
And we turned that into a show, pitched it and sold it. And it's going to be coming on the air, I believe, early next year. Excellent. So I'm keeping busy there. And I've got 2 or 3 things in development. I'm still developing a show with Richard Hammond, one of the guys from Top Gear.
You are still doing that? Yes, Swampy.
I know. It's so good. We're actually doing an animatic and that title sequence for it that we're animating. So.
Oh my God. So excited.
Car stuff. Whee!
Shocking.
And
That's
then
amazing.
we're talking about the possibility of doing some other spin-offs from Phineas and Ferb.
Excellent.
It's all just in the air. But I've got my own studio, and now we've got like 150 people over in Manchester who are doing our animation at our Surfing Giant UK offices.
Shut up, Swamps. I didn't know.
I know. I've now got companies on 2 continents, you see.
Well, obviously you do. That's amazing. How cool, Swamps. That's really, really exciting. Super, super excited to see everything you do. As if you don't have enough going on. Why don't you just do like 13 things at once, Swamps? That's great.
I need more stuff to do.
Sure you do. Yeah. Before we get into our questions, one last question here. Have you seen any evolving trends either on the show running side or on the character development side?
Well, I mean, one of the things we're going through right now, and this is, big industry stuff, almost everybody is being super, super cautious.
Yep.
So it's pretty much been stated by most folks that the only thing they're really interested in developing or picking up is existing IPs that have a good visibility or heritage projects.
Which works out for you.
Right now it's nice that we're considered, which is still weird for me to perceive that we're heritage projects for Disney, but there you go. I guess once you get
Totally
a
are.
walk around character, your heritage. So we're in a good place right now, but it makes it really tough for other folks. There aren't a lot of broadcasters that are taking the risk on original stuff, which is a shame. But it's, pendulum swing. The industry is just really waiting to see how everything shakes out now. So I'd say if you're looking for an easier pitch, find an existing project that you can put a new spin on and work on that. If you're doing original stuff, just be aware it's tough out there right now, but don't be discouraged because it all swings around. I mean, we pitched Phineas and Ferb for 13 years.
13 years you pitched that show.
Yeah, we're just
before it was
stubborn.
picked up. I like that. I mean, I like that you're stubborn. I am too, but Christ almighty, 13 years. That's intense.
It was, we just kept pitching it to everybody. It got near the top everywhere. And then for one reason or another, never got made. And Disney said no to it the first time. And then like 9-10 months later called and said, what we want now is different. So we want to pick your show up. And that's the other thing to remember. I know a lot of people have gone and pitched everywhere. And then 2 or 3 years later, they still have that show kicking around.
Yeah.
And they'll say I already pitched it to Nickelodeon. You said 2 years ago, everybody that you pitched is gone.
Yeah.
And what that network wants is probably completely changed. So if you've got a show that you think is a good idea, don't throw it away just because you did one round of pitches and it didn't hit.
Exactly.
Keep pitching.
That's such a great point, Swamps. I think some people I have talked to, for whatever reason, I have nothing to do with any of that as a casting director, but many people will come talk to me about their efforts. And yeah, that's one of them. Well, we pitched it. And it's like, well, that's a great lesson. Don't stop because you never know. 13 years for Phineas. And look at that. Arguably the biggest show Disney TV animation has ever had.
I like thinking of all of the people who said no.
Like a hit list, Swamps.
We actually, there was an unnamed executive at another network who was having lunch with a mutual friend of ours, actually somebody who worked on the show for a while. And she said, I heard that somebody at our network turned that show down. I want to know who it is. I want to get a name.
Yeah.
So they came back and said, so I was at lunch. They'd like a name. And go, well, that would be them. It would be their name. They were the ones who said
Yeah.
it. Clearly, it didn't make an impression on them.
I would wager that person didn't keep their job for too long. That's too bad. Hey, you know what? Listen, when you're in that position, I would imagine sort of like having an ear for casting. You've got to have an eye and an imagination and really see that.
But it also really depends on, and this is why I say keep pitching stuff over and over. It depends on what the network was looking for at the time. And the truth is that executive may have been right in that they'd been giving their marching orders about what to look for and what the network wanted and what shows they were, looking to produce. And we may not have fit that at all at that time.
Totally.
So,
there are weird trends. There's weird trends in that too, right? Swamps, like what they're looking at certain times.
We've had shows where people have tried to stick things on. It's like, doing magical stuff was the big thing for a while. So we were pitching a show that had no magic in it. We keep getting that comment. Could there be magic in it? Maybe ghosts and stuff? No. Yeah. Why don't you just buy a show that has magic and ghosts and stuff? Because it's not the show.
Right, exactly. Too funny. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did.
Casting Canvas is brought to you by Paiva Productions. You can find workshops and coaching with Kristen Paiva on her website at paiva.productions. Subscribe to get notified of new episodes and leave a comment to let us know your thoughts. Thanks for listening.